Hello and welcome to this Price a Job tutorial. In this video we'll be taking a look at the new wall paneling module. To access the new wall paneling module, first go to the internal finishes category here in the top module toolbar and select wall paneling. Here we have options for wall panels, bathroom panels, or MDF panels, and it doesn't really matter which one we choose because we'll have the option to select differently once we're inside the module. So click Create, and this opens the new wall panels module. Across the top here we have options for wall panels, bathroom panels, or MDF panels, and depending on which of these categories we choose, the wall panels module will allow us a different selection of materials to choose from. So for wall panels, we have a variety of acoustic panels to choose from. For bathroom panels, we have a variety of prefabricated moisture-resistant panels to choose from. And from MDF panels, we have a variety of MDF panels to choose from, including standard, moisture-resistant, melamine, veneered, or matchboard. For now, we'll just focus on the regular wall panels with acoustic panels. And then we have an option of selecting panels and or rails. So we can do rails only if we already have a finished wall, or we can do panels only if we're just adding panels to an existing wall, or we can do panels and rails. Now, if you're adding rails only, then it doesn't really matter whether you choose wall panels, bathroom panels, or MDF panels because there's no panels being added here at all. It's just the rails, and the materials you'll be using for that would be the same for any of these categories. For now, let's select panels and rails, and start by inputting our area. Here we can specify the width of our wall. In this case, maybe it's 10 meters, which would be 10,000 millimeters. And Price a Job automatically assigns a default height of 2.4 meters for the height, and an area is calculated of 24 square meters. Now, if we were to override this height, maybe we only wanted to panel half the wall, the height might only be 1200 millimeters, in which case Price a Job will recalculate the height as being only 12 square meters. But of these three dimensions, Price a Job will always use the most recent two inputs. So if we know the height and the area that needs to be paneled, say we're only going to be paneling 6 square meters here, Price a Job will use these two most recent inputs to calculate the remaining input. In this case, the width would be 5,000 millimeters. If you have an irregular area that you'll be paneling, you can choose to use the area calculator instead. And with this, you would just simply add the areas piece by piece until you build your entire wall. So for example, you might start with a regular square wall here at 5,000 millimeters, but it's important to note that this is actually only asking in meters. So this would be 5.0 meters with a height of 2.4 meters. And save. And then we could add another area. Perhaps we turn a corner and we do another section of wall, but this will only be half height. So we'll give this the full width of 5,000 millimeters, which again would be 5 meters, and a height of only half height of 1.2 meters. And save this section. And then maybe we have a very irregular section on the end here. We could choose from right trapezoids, squares, quadrilaterals, right triangles, triangles, circles, or a semicircle. So let's put a semicircular end cap on our half wall here, and we'll assign a diameter of this semicircle of 1.2 meters. And save. And Price a Job uses all of these sections to give us a total area of 18.6 meters, and when we save this, it adds this to our area calculator here. At any time we can return to the area calculator to edit or add to our calculation. And Price a Job uses this value to calculate an estimate for all the various stages, and composes a nicely written description here at the top. But say for example, instead of supplying the panels, the client will be supplying the panels for us. In that case, we can select Supplied by Client from this drop-down menu here, and that is indicated here in our description, and the materials are updated here in the estimate to show Supplied by Client with a value of $0. Alternatively, if we already know the value of the panels we'll be purchasing, we can assign allowance per square meter, and we can input that here, say 75 pounds per square meter, in which case the description is updated to show the allowance for our paneling, and the estimate also updates. Notice that there is a difference here between the 90 pounds showing on our estimate and the 75 pounds we specified. And the reason for that is that the 90 pounds includes our profit margin, and we can deselect our profit margins by selecting this checkbox here. When profit is removed from our estimate, we can see here that the price of the paneling is set at 75 pounds per square meter. But because we'll be delivering this to a client, we definitely want to be sure to include our profits. Notice that this value is highlighted in yellow, and this shows that this is an overridden value. If we wish to return this back to the default values, we can use the cog icon here to reset this. And that returns back to $72, including profit, which is $60 cost. For the rest of this example, however, we'll continue pricing out with regular acoustic panels. And although I think it's interesting that we can build complex shapes, let's go ahead and delete this complex area and save that, and return our wall back to 2400 millimeters height with a width of 10 meters, so that our sketch is a little bit easier to view. Now, if we'll be installing panels only, we would be doing this generally on a rough wall, and we have the option to mount these panels on batten supports, which we can see here in the diagram. If we prefer not to have batten supports, we can deselect this checkbox here, and then choose to fix the panels to the wall with adhesive, which is already selected here, and we can use the drop-down menu to choose our adhesive, and we can also pin these panels in place by selecting the checkbox here for fixing, and then choosing the type of nail we wish to use. But if we'll be mounting these panels on batten supports, we can select batten support here, and that removes the adhesive option, as generally these will be held in place only with fixings. For the batten supports, we have options to choose the size of our battens, as well as the spacing. And if we select the options menu here, we can choose whether the battens will be vertical or horizontal, and whether we choose to use cross battens or not. If we use cross battens, then we can specify the number of rows we wish to use, or just let PriceJob calculate the number of rows by choosing by spacing. And the default spacing is 400 millimeters, but if we were to change this to, say, 800 millimeters, then PriceJob automatically calculates the number of cross battens required. If we were to return the spacing to 400, then the number of battens doubles. If you don't need cross battens at all, you can simply remove these. Next, we can specify the fixings we choose to use for these battens, either nails, screws, or hammer fixings. And for each of these, we can select from the drop-down menu the type of materials we wish to use. In this case, we'll just use regular nails, and we'll choose 75 millimeter. If you wish to include a damp-proof course behind your timber battens, you can select this option here, and this adds another stage where we can choose the type of materials we wish to use. Perhaps we want to use 150 millimeter DPC. And as we make our various adjustments, PriceJob automatically calculates the total batten's length, in this case 70 millimeters, and the quantity of fixings required, which is 117 nails. When we're done with this, we can close this window. If we'll be decorating these panels, we can choose the Decorating Panels checkbox here, and this adds a new stage here in the right-hand panel called Decorating Wood. And here from the drop-down menu, we can choose either gloss, oil, wood stain, varnish, or none. If we're choosing none, you might as well deselect this stage or remove it entirely by deselecting this checkbox here. For this example though, we do want to decorate our panels, and we'll be using gloss. Then we can select our gloss options menu here, and set the total area to be painted, the number of primer coats and undercoats and gloss coats we wish to apply, and the paint coverage for each, and we can get these details from the paint canister. Next, if we want to add any painting preparation items, we can select this box here, and add preparation items such as fill holes and cracks, sand and fill, or burning off paint. So we'll fill some holes and cracks. And we can also add any fillers, adhesives, sealants, primers and undercoats, gloss paints, wood stain, wood oil, or varnish that's needed. When you make your selection, you can adjust your quantity here, and we have 24 square meters of wall that may require preparation. PriceJob calculates that for you and adds this to your estimate here in the Decorating Wood section. Fill holes and cracks, scrape any flakes. Now let's take a look at rails only. And here under the rails stage, we can choose the type of material we wish to use, either an MDF wall paneling kit or various sizes of redwood. We can also specify if rails will be supplied by client or if we have a rails allowance per meter, in which case we can just input that value here. If there's a material that is not displayed that we wish to use, we can edit pack and add that as a material here. For this example, we'll just choose redwood 20 by 44 millimeters. And then we can specify the spacing, set at 400 millimeters by default. Here under the options menu, we can choose whether we want our rails to be vertical or horizontal, and whether we wish to use cross rails or not. So perhaps we want to have vertical rails with cross rails, and we want the spacing of the cross rails to be 800 millimeters. And we can see how that looks in the design. And if this is the inverse of what we wanted, we can just simply choose, instead of vertical, horizontal. And perhaps that's more what we had in mind. If you prefer to specify the number of rails as opposed to just going by standard spacing, you can specify the number of cross rails you want by selecting between 1 to 10. Perhaps we only want 5 rows of cross rails. And here we can specify if we want the rail lengths to be the full height of the wall or a custom value. And then here we can specify the type of fixings we wish to use for the rails, either nails, screws, or hammer fixings, and choose the materials for each of these. We'll just stick with regular nails. We use 65mm. And you can specify the spacings for these. And as we go along, Price of Job automatically calculates the rail's length, 82 meters, and the quantity of fixings, 137. If we were to tighten our spacing on these fixings, say 400, our fixings would change from 137 to 205 quantity required. When we're done, we can close this window and take a quick look at the panels and rails combined. And being a combination of panels and rails, which we've already seen, it's basically just everything that we've already seen, but with all the options combined. So here we can decorate the panels and decorate the rails, include the batten supports, include the fixings. If we're not using battens, then we can select an adhesive. In this case, we do want batten support. And then we have stages for our batten support settings, our wall panels, our rails, our decorating wood, and also a section for accessories, which we haven't seen yet. So let's take a look at the Select Accessories button here. And here we can choose to add wall panel accessories, adhesives, sealants, nails, screws, and plugs. So for this example, let's choose some starter trim. Maybe we need a quantity of 4 of these. And that is added to our estimate here at the very bottom in a stage called Accessories. Now, if these internal finishes are for bathroom panels, we can select this, and under the wall panel stage, we can select from here a variety of moisture-resistant prefabricated panels, and select whether you'll be mounting these by nail, or perhaps in the bathroom you won't be requiring battens, in which case you can deselect the batten support and mount these to the walls using adhesives. Alternatively, if you're not using prefab panels, MDF panels are a popular option, and here you can select from the drop-down menu either standard MDF panels of various sizes, moisture-resistant MDF, melamine, veneered, or matchboard. We'll just select standard MDF. Now, if you want to use the rails to hide your panel seams, then what you can do is go to the Rails section here and select the Rails options and deselect Cross Rails and select your rails for vertical. Then, under the Rails stage, set your spacing to 1200mm. And now each of these rails will be properly positioned to hide your panel seams. And as we've made all of our adjustments, the description has been automatically updating to provide a nicely written description of all the work to be performed. And if there are any materials you wish to add that are not included elsewhere under the painting preparation or accessories, we can add those materials by selecting the Add New Material icon here. And this opens Price of Job's materials library. And here you can search for a material, say perhaps you need some extra caulk, and select that material from the library. And that is added to your estimate, and here you can adjust the quantity as needed. Maybe we need 7 tubes of caulk. Now, if you're only being hired to perform the labor for this installation, or perhaps the opposite, being hired only to supply the materials, you can use the filters icon here at the top of the estimate to choose to either include or exclude materials or labor. So for this example, we've deselected labor, and now our estimate is only for the materials. All labor has been removed from the various estimates. Alternatively, if we were to include labor, that adds the labor lines back to each section of the estimate, and exclude materials, then all materials have been removed from our estimate, and now we're only quoting for the labor. This is project specific, but if you want to affect global filters on all projects, you could use the global filters here to do the same thing. Exclude materials, exclude labor, and this would affect all of your projects throughout Price of Job, not just this single project. We don't want to do that right now, however, so we'll make sure we leave all of those checked, and these ones as well. And now as finishing touches, we might want to retitle our module. Right now it's titled MDF Panels. We could retitle that here, or we could do that also right here by clicking the 3 dots and selecting Rename. And we'll just retitle this Wall Paneling. And save. And to make any finishing touches, we might want to expand our sketch pane here by using the full screen icon here at the top. We can zoom out on our sketch by using the scroll wheel on our mouse. And by clicking down on our scroll wheel, we can reposition our sketch as well. And by clicking down on our mouse, we can circle around and have more of a 3D view of our wall as well that we're working on. And when we're satisfied with our changes, we can reduce this screen back to minimum and go to our Reports tab. And here we can see a nicely detailed quote for our client. We have options to show this either with simple structure or advanced, which shows the breakdown of all of our material and labor. We can choose to either show or hide the description, show or hide the materials, or show or hide the labor, prices, and units. We also have options to show subtotals for each category, for each stage, and show a detailed breakdown of the materials, labor, plant and tool, and other costs. When you're done, you can print this report for your client, download it as a PDF to your system, export it as a Word document, or email it directly to your client from within Price a Job. And that's how to use the new wall paneling module. Thank you for using Price a Job.